You're gonna call the same witness,
Yeah,
right?
same witness.
You can come back and you're still under oath and we'll continue.
And I'm gonna try and speed this up a little bit.
Well, you do what you need to do. We're gonna be here till 5. and-
Thank you. Okay. Are we back on the record? Okay, Ms. Montes, you've tested that, we talked about a medical condition called penosis, right?
Yes.
Do you know what that is?
It's like a rash on the pee-pee.
Okay. And you testified that you took Tarzo to what kind of doctor?
I think the word is urologist.
Well, I think you would be correct. Okay. What did you do? What did the urologist make a recommendation as to anything?
He said everything was fine. I think he also said it was either okay with him and it was to have or not to have a circumcision. He said it was up to us.
Okay. And did you decide to do or not do a circumcision?
I don't think it was ever talked about.
Okay. So you did, when you say it was never talked about, was that with Mr. Carrera?
Correct.
Okay. Did you make a decision as to what to do?
About the circumcision?
Yes.
Yes.
And what is that?
I don't want him circumcised.
Okay. Will he continue to suffer from this penosis?
No.
It was a one-time deal?
Yes.
Okay. Has Marvin ever had any dental work done?
Marvin.
I'm sorry, Marvin. Tarzo had any dental work done?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the dental work?
His dad took him the first time,
Okay.
and I took him another time, and I took him 2 times.
Okay. What was the work?
To clean his whole teeth, and he had fallen and had like a tooth. It got loose, so I asked the doctor if it was okay or not. He said you could remove it, but he has to go under, or you could just leave it to see if it heals, and it healed on its own.
Has Tarzo ever had any cavities?
I think so.
And how old was he when he had those cavities?
I think 2.5.
Okay. And is Tarzo current on his immunizations?
No.
Why not?
Marvin allows him to get immunizations every 3 months.
Okay, and how many immunizations are there?
I believe we're up to 4.
How many are there total
What?
immunizations?
It's repeated immunizations. I think you have to have like 12, and then you got to repeat them every so often.
Okay, that's fair enough. And when did you start?
I think it was like October, November. I don't remember the date.
Okay, but he's only had 4? Okay. I want to refer you back to Foothills Pediatric. Is that where you went before you went to Sunrise Hospital in January?
Foothills Pediatric, yes.
Okay. And what date did you go there?
It was January. Was it the same? I think it was the same day.
Okay.
I believe it was the same day, January 23rd, 24th.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
This is another item. Exhibit.
I have it. Thank you.
This is another document that was attached to an exhibit for us. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Okay, and is that from Foothills Pediatric?
Yeah. Can she ask me from her chair? I feel pressure, Your Honor.
Well, there's something I want to point out to her.
January. It says January 23rd.
Is that when you took Tarza?
Yes.
And that's the same day you took him to Sunrise?
Correct.
Okay, and what does it say right here about redness?
Redness in oh no. I can hardly read it. It says something that's house 120. I can hardly read it.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that on the 23rd, you took Tarzo to Foothills Pediatric, and you were complaining about redness since he came home from Dad's house.
Correct.
That's a correct statement?
Say it again?
That you went to Foothill Pediatric on the 23rd, that's correct, right?
Correct.
And you told them that he had been at Dad's house and that he had redness in his penis.
It was more of his tush and his penis both.
Well, let me bring it back to you.
The redness wasn't only in his penis; it was in his pee-pee and it was in his tush.
Okay. But you still waited several days before taking him, correct?
I got him back the 20th, but very late. So, that day we went to sleep. However, I got him to the doctor on the 23rd.
Okay. But you got him back on the 20th. Did you give him a bath?
We drive from Barstow. It was too late to give him a bath. By the time we get there, he's sleeping.
Did you talk to him?
Tarso?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did he seem hurt?
That day, ma'am, he was already asleep when we got home.
Fair enough. Did you talk to him on the 21st?
Yes.
Did you bathe him on the 21st?
Yes.
And you didn't notice the redness on the 21st?
I didn't pay attention.
Okay. Did he say it hurt?
I don't remember.
Okay. And then on the 22nd, did you bathe him that day?
Correct.
Did you notice the redness?
Correct.
Okay. But you didn't do anything on the 22nd?
Correct.
Okay. And then on the 23rd, you did?
In the morning when he told me.
So why? Why that day?
Because that's when Tarso told me what had happened in the morning.
But you believed it happened at Marvin's house?
Correct.
Okay. If I can approach you again. There's a statement here. Is that what you told? If you'd look at that statement and tell me, I'll have her read it in a second. Do you see what it says there?
Yes.
And what does it say?
I believe says, he said his pee hurts and I can hardly read it.
It's your exhibit, ma'am.
No, I didn't write this, ma'am.
I know you didn't write it, but it's your exhibit. I'm assuming you had a reason for giving it to your lawyer.
I was,
Does it say Papa put finger, butt?
I don't know, I can't
Well,
read it.
Let's look. Does it say Papa put finger, butt?
It says I don't know if it says finger butt. I mean,
Well, I'll tell the judge where it is and we'll let the judge
okay,
decide,
sure.
okay?
Sure.
And what motion is this attached to? It's attached to their emergency motion, Your Honor, that was filed on 2/18.
Exhibit 5, I'll help you.
Thank you. Exhibit 5. Okay. Do you know if Foothills Pediatric referred this matter to CPS?
I don't know.
Okay. Did they tell you they were going to?
No.
Did, I'm sorry? What did they tell you?
She said that she couldn't do a thorough investigation on it, like a thorough inspection as a doctor, because she couldn't, and she verbally told me that I could go to Children's Hospital.
Okay. Then you went to Sunrise.
Correct.
Did they report this to CPS?
Yes.
They did.
Hmm.
They did or you did?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I did too, not at the hospital. I did report it to CPS, but also, I don't think the hospital called CPS. There was a detective there because there was another case of same thing, and there was a detective there, and they told the detective to go in my room, and the detective said, "Well, since it didn't happen here, I don't have jurisdiction."
Isn't that what Metro said, not the detective?
That was before.
Okay. I'm gonna bring you a page from the Sunrise Hospital report, your exhibit number 6 from the emergency motion. And the very bottom line here, what does it say?
Point to his butt and that Papa touched it.
Let me give you the, where it says PT.
PT went to Foothills and refer here. CPS was already contacted.
And who already contacted CPS?
I did.
So you contacted CPS?
Yes, ma'am.
Before sunrise?
On the way there, actually.
Okay. Who told you to?
A friend of mine.
Who?
Well, it was a couple of people.
Who?
I don't see how that's important.
It doesn't.
Who told you to call CPS?
I don't remember right now.
Was it the doctor?
No.
So
I don't think the doctor said much. She just referred me to Sunrise.
Okay. And then you took it upon yourself to call CPS.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did CPS believe you were credible?
That would be-
Objection, she's asking my client to speculate as to
No,
what
I'll show her the
CPS
report.
won. Yeah, no, you're saying,
It's the Unity report.
but you, then refer to the report, ask her to read the report and see, and what the conclusion was.
What is your question again?
I asked if CPS found her to be credible.
That's speculating, she doesn't know what,
Well, she knows. In the CPS report, did they believe you were honest?
it's objection, speculation, she doesn't
No,
know.
if she knows, do you know?
I don't know.
She doesn't know.
Okay. And did Sunrise believe you were being honest?
Objection.
If
You
it's
know.
in the report, will you know?
I believe so.
Okay.
Were you crying?
At the end, I got teary.
So let me bring you the report. And while we're looking for the report, eventually Marvin got unsupervised visitation restored to him. Is that correct? And about when was that?
I think it was was it July or August, one of those months, when we came back to court and you were in the case.
And Tarzo did you, we were at a hearing, I believe it was in, can't remember the date. It was August, I believe.
The first or the second?
The second one after,
August 28th? I
No, it
remember
was-
that.
I'm sorry, I'll get the correct date. Marvin his visitation was restored, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you said you were going to fly Tarzo down to Los Angeles, correct?
Well, I got permission to do either or.
Okay, that's fair enough. Did your attorney say here in court that you were going to fly Tarzo down to see Marvin?
I don't
On
know
or
what she
about
said.
the 22nd, I believe it was, of August.
I don't know what my attorney said, ma'am.
Okay.
For
Did,
for the record, I do remember that she wanted to fly him if it's possible, and I committed her to fly if she wanted to. He said, no, I can't afford flying, I'll drive all the time.
Right.
And then she said, well, if he can drive, I wanna fly or drive, so
okay, that's
what
fair.
happened?
Then I believe it was on the 22nd of that month, Marvin was supposed to have visitation, is that correct?
Yeah,
That was a Friday, correct?
I'm sure.
Did you take Tarzo to see Marvin
Yes,
that day?
the next day.
Why the next day?
Because Tarso fell and got a big bump in his head. And I was really worried about him. I asked Marvin, he said, I still want him. There's doctors here.
No,
So
let's back up.
I
Let's
took
back
him
up.
over there.
So Tarzo fell and hit his head.
Mhm.
What did you do when he hit his head?
I took him to Sunrise.
Okay. And what happened to Tarzo?
He got out of the bath and slipped and hit his head.
Okay, so he has a bump on his head, right? And how did Marvin find out he wasn't going to be getting his visitation?
No, I didn't say he wasn't getting his visitation. I sent him an email saying that Tarso had fall and I was worried about him. I mean, it wasn't just a bump, it was like a big bump, you know, and the doctor told me to care for him, and I, as his mother, I wanted to be there for him. Marvin said no. I said, okay, if it's okay with you, I'd like to get some sleep, and I'll drive him tomorrow, first thing in the morning. I was there before 11 or 10.
Okay, did your attorney have to become involved?
She was always involved for everything.
Okay. Did I contact your attorney?
I don't know.
Okay. How did you make the decision to take him for visitation? How did you come to that decision?
I just told you.
Well, first you weren't going to do it, then you decided to do it?
She hasn't testified, objection, she's testifying for her. She never said I was not gonna take him.
She said that.
She says I was gonna
Had
take
you
him the next
originally planned on not letting Tarzo visit Marvin?
My intentions was for him to have his visitation. And Tarsa had an accident. Accidents happen all the time, ma'am. He's 3 years old. Yes, I'm overprotective. It's my culture, you know. And I wanted to be there for him, to care for him. And Marvin told me there's doctors here.
Okay,
I don't see why not.
Judge,
So what's the answer?
did you intend to keep Tarzo home that weekend?
To care for him. And I asked his...
Did you?
Yes or no? Did you want to keep the child for the whole weekend? To protect him?
To care for him.
So was that yes? So did you tell him that there'd be no visits this weekend because of what happened?
No, I asked him, I said what happened, and I said if I can keep him for the weekend, and I would give him the next weekend. And he said, no, there's doctors here. So I took him the next morning over there. I drove over there.
Would it surprise you to know I called your attorney?
Would it surprise me?
Yes.
Why would it surprise me?
Well, to insist on visitation.
I don't know why it would surprise me. I talked to Marvin. I mean, we have emails, we have text.
Okay. Isn't it odd that on Marvin's first weekend of visitation, suddenly Tarzo can't come see him?
I don't think it's odd, ma'am.
So after 7 months of not having a relationship with his son, all of a sudden, it's not odd?
Have you ever loved someone so much that you want to care for
I
them?
object to this line of answering. It's not what I feel, it's not what I'm doing, I'm an advocate for my client.
You need to answer questions and not ask questions. They ask questions. If you know, you say yes, or you say no, or I don't understand.
Okay.
Was it proper for you to attempt to deny that visitation?
Objection, she's never testified that she intended to.
Yes, she did. She said she was gonna keep him because she was gonna care for him.
She said she gave him she said, can I keep him and give you next week? She asked a question, he said
Well,
no.
And the question is, does she think that was proper?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't proper. I mean,
Then why did you do it?
I'm a overprotective mom.
What does that mean?
That I want to care for my only son. That I want him to be okay, and he's only 3, ma'am.
Is Dad capable of caring for his only son?
Yes, he is.
Capable as you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he should have visitation?
Yes, ma'am.
When your son has been, with Mr. Carrera, would you ever call the police to have them check on Tarza?
That was way before, when I would call Mr. Carrera and he wouldn't let me talk to Tarso. He wouldn't,
Did you call in July of 2013?
I don't know when I called.
Why would you call?
I was instructed by my counsel at that time to do something that he said it was called, I didn't even know that was possible, but I was instructed by Kane, Mr. Ed Kane, that I could call the police and they would check for me if he wasn't taking any calls and I hadn't heard from them.
But isn't it true you called Marvin's father?
He didn't answer.
Or you called Marvin's father, right?
I called Marvin too, yeah.
And you talked to Marvin's father?
Nope.
You didn't? You,
I've talked to him before.
I'm gonna look at another one of your exhibits. Okay, we'll need to find, because you submitted some phone logs. Yeah. As exhibits.
To what motion?
Probably the same emergency motion.
I don't think so. There was no phone logs in that one.
It's a reply. Reply, it was filed 3/27/14.
And that's a reply filed by plaintiff?
It's, yes.
Yes.
Like this reply. Filed 3/27 is a reply to defendant's opposition to her emergency motion.
Which exhibit?
It is your exhibit 2. If I can approach, I'll show you your phone number.
I don't have a phone log in exhibit 2 in my,
Well, here it is. Have you not seen that?
I'm just saying it's not attached to my exhibit 2, so let me look.
Okay, I'm gonna let you look at this, because I believe it's your handwriting on here.
Sure.
I don't
What
have
is
that.
that piece of paper, man?
It's a phone bill.
Okay, whose phone bill?
Mine.
Okay, and are there any dates on there?
Yeah.
And what are the dates?
June 17, 2013
Okay, through,
to July 16, 2013.
okay.
I don't have a copy of that. And you said it's exhibit 2 to my reply on March 27?
But
No,
when,
that's- you're looking at the wrong document.
Okay, then which one is it?
Tom will show you this.
Reply.
I have the reply,
That's
exhibit 2 is
it.
emails.
That's it, sir. Okay, and this is your phone bill, okay? And is your handwriting?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, and does it show you making phone calls to Marvin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and does it show you making phone calls to Marvin's father?
Yes, ma'am. That's why I
And you've written
submitted
those on
this.
there, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now, the phone calls.
Counselor, can you wait till she finds it?
Yeah, I don't have this one. The one I have is a completely different one. I would want to look at, see what she's,
Here, I'll give you this one. This is from your exhibit 2. This is exhibit 2 from your reply. My clerk just typed it off. I'll give you that one. That came from her.
It came from the reply.
Okay.
Names on it.
She's gonna get whose reply it is and what date it is.
I just don't think I have that reply at all in my pleadings,
I
that's what I'm
understand.
saying.
That's why I gave you a copy.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You should have printed out all 400 pages.
Okay, and this is back to, I think you got a late foundation as to when that, I'm so confused when you're asking testimony as to the time period. We
I
go
just asked for the
from
dates
now,
on
we
here.
go from now, then we go back to, you know,
You
2013
need
and.
to keep up.
Okay,
I'm really confused on the time too.
Well, it's your document, ma'am. What was the time frame?
This one says June 17 to July 16, 2013.
Okay, fine, and the question is, this is when the child first had unsupervised visits with the father. Is that the time period?
Yes.
Because you haven't established that,
guess.
okay,
Haven't gotten that far. I'm just
Okay.
establishing what the document is.
okay.
And is this when Mr. Carrera first started getting unsupervised visitation, overnights?
Yes.
Okay? Were you able to contact anyone in Mr. Carrera's home to talk about Tarzo, to see how he's doing?
I would call and Marvin wouldn't answer.
What about his
So-
father?
A couple of times his dad did answer, and a lot of times it went to voicemail.
Okay, are there any phone calls on there that last longer than a minute?
And to what number, so I know which
Well,
number you're
I'm
referring
first
to?
asking if there are any.
Correct.
It's just a minute.
And what is the first date where a phone call lasts longer than a minute?
First date. Where's the date? It doesn't say the date.
Well, someone has written some dates in here. Who is that?
Me.
Okay, so
This one's right here.
what is the first date a phone call lasts longer than a minute?
To what phone number, to any number?
I don't care.
Oh, okay, then tell her to any number. The first page,
To Mr. Carrera or his father, when is the first time there is a phone call longer than a minute?
July 3rd.
Okay, so were you able to speak to someone in Mr. Carrera's home regarding Tarzo on that date?
Apparently, yes.
Okay, did you call the police that day
Did I?
for a well baby check?
I don't know if.
Okay, do you know what days you did call the police for a well baby check?
No, I don't.
Okay, what is the next date you had a phone call longer than a minute to anyone in Mr. Carrera's home?
The date, July 4.
Okay, and so on the 3rd you had a phone call longer than a minute, on the 4th you had a phone call longer than a minute. Are there any other phone calls to anyone in Mr. Carrera's home on that sheet on any other day longer than a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
How many more?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so from your own exhibit then, you were able to contact someone in Mr. Carrera's home, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so were you able to check on Tarzo?
I'm not sure if this was the fact, ma'am, or if that's the case, because it doesn't make sense that I would be calling a well check if I was talking to Marvin.
But that wasn't my question. My question, were you able to connect with Mr. Carrera's home to check on Tarzo?
In this date, yes.
Okay, thank you. Do you recall at all when you contacted the police for well baby checks?
No, ma'am.
How many times did you contact the police?
I think it was 2.
Okay. And has Mr. Carrera ever called for a well baby check at your home?
No,
Not even when he couldn't see Tarzo for months?
no.
Where does Tarzo sleep at your home?
With me?
In your bed? Why? Why?
I don't know. Just,
Does he have his own bed?
yes.
Do you have a roommate?
Right now, no.
Have you in the past?
Yes.
Who was that?
Alex Cisneros.
I thought Tarzo, what was your relationship with him?
Just friends.
When did he move into your home?
He was there for about 6 months, waiting for his wife from Colombia, and he moved out. I want to say like in September of last year.
About the time of the abuse?
No.
Alleged abuse?
No, no. He had moved in after. Or during, I'm not
After
really
the
sure.
abuse?
No, he moved in September of 2013.
Okay. And he was there for 6 months?
No, for about a year. For about a
Okay,
year.
so that would have put him in the home through the period of the alleged abuse, correct?
Correct.
How do you know it wasn't him teaching Tarzo things?
He was never alone with Tarso. I mean, Alex works for the city and he's a Zumba instructor and he leaves at 6 a.m. He would come home at 9 p.m. and Tarso was with me all the time.
What do you mean that Tarzo was with you all the time?
At night, he sleeps in my bed, ma'am.
How many bedrooms does your house have?
3 and a dent.
Why doesn't Tarzo have his own room?
He has his own room.
Do you believe it's healthy for a 3-year-old to be sleeping with his mother?
I don't know about that.
Is it healthy for Tarzo?
I don't know, ma'am.
Objection, speculation.
She's the mother.
She's not an expert. It's
She's-
okay.
right. She
Okay.
can testify as to her own knowledge.
I mean, it's already been answered, so objections overruled.
Oh, then strike.
No, I will rest, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Nothing further with this witness.
I'm gonna ask some questions, Your Honor. Okay. When did Tarso, you testified that Tarso's behavior changed. When did that behavior, when did you notice his change of behavior and what behavior was that?
It was after the overnight. He started, like, when I would leave him, he would cry hysterically. When I would pick him up, he would cry for hours before going to bed. He wouldn't want the light to be turned off. He would wake up in the middle of the night to check where he was. He would just throw himself on the floor. During the day, he
I'm going to
stopped.
object, Your Honor. She was asked a question as to when the behavior changed.
And then I said, what behavior change? What was the change of behavior? She's telling me the changes of behavior, what you noticed.
And you said it started with the overnight visits. Which overnight visits are we talking? 'Cause weren't there overnight visits in Las Vegas?
There was never overnight visits in Las Vegas, no,
And
Your
I
Honor.
never, there was an order, but it never occurred.
No, it wasn't. The order was Saturdays and Sundays for a few hours each day. And this is what he agreed to.
Well, if you look at your decree of custody that you prepared, on page 4, part C, say from May of 2013 until October of 2013, defendant shall have 6 months of overnight visitation.
Correct, that never happened because
Well,
you
that's what
changed.
I asked you.
Yeah, right, they changed, once she brought in a few months after the decree, she brought in the motion regarding the health insurance, and he did a counter motion asking for, in other words, for his visitation to be changed, what he agreed to at that time. And you agreed to give him, at that time, visitation in California unsupervised.
So sometime in 2012 or 2013.
Correct, that would be, I guess, in the beginning of 2013. I mean,
2013, like June or July of 2013.
Was it after the judge ordered unsupervised visits in California?
Yes.
Prior to that, how were the visits here in Nevada? How often was he coming?
He was showing up. He was always late, and I mean, he would stay at my house some days. He smelled like alcohol, and one time he even asked me to gamble money, and he was just laying on the couch, not playing with Tarso, and then he would, just tell me I'm ghetto and ask me for money, and I mean, I didn't feel like there was much connection with Tarso.
Was he coming to Las Vegas every 2 weeks to see his son after the decree was signed?
I think
And you would allow him to stay in your house?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
He asked me to save some money. I said yes. Him and his dad stayed. We had a carne asada a couple of times. I mean, we were, I was doing my best to help the unification and establish a relationship.
At that time, did he had overnight visits?
No,
Okay, so you granted him overnight visits in your house, correct?
correct,
Out of your own free will, correct?
correct.
Okay, did he go out when he would come here and out drinking or out partying, gambling?
He would come to the visits smelling like alcohol, with his friends, boys. You can tell they were out partying the night before, and he would show up for the visits. If they were for like 2-3 hours, he would just show up for half of the time and leave. And I mean, he would always come, and we would always be there. Sometimes he would get upset because Tarso would, I mean, he was 1 at that point. He was napping. He would say, "You put him asleep just so I wouldn't see him. This is your fault." And hey, I don't have power over a 1-year-old napping. And
Why did you bring in the motion a few months after the decree was filed? Why did you bring in that motion?
which one?
After the decree was filed, you brought in a motion
Oh, because
for contempt.
I mean, Marvin would always call me, and we would talk on the phone, and he'd call me names, and I told him, please don't call me names. And then he wanted me to go get the birth certificate. I said, you can do it too. Why don't you do it? And I said, you're supposed to have the insurance, the medical insurance. And he said no. And I was being upset about that, and that's why I thought it was really simple, like a form, and he would just fill it out, like sending a letter to the judge, and then the judge would ask him to do it because it was in a decree. But it wasn't like that. It became like a whole big thing, because then the whole decree was changed.
I'm not going there. I'm not going there. You're going too far. You brought in a motion because you were not getting health insurance. Is that correct?
Partial, yeah.
Prior to that, after that, the defendant filed a counter motion because you were not allowing him any visitations. Had he ever complained to you about that prior to that?
No,
Okay. And that's when the visitations were being done here in Nevada, correct, supervised? For 2 hours in your house on Sundays and 2 hours on Saturdays, is that correct?
correct.
He had never complained to you?
Nope.
He had never sent you an email? He never called you and said, "You're not letting me see the child as we agreed," is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, why was there such a long schedule for reunification with the child? Why was that?
I'm going to object. You've already made a finding. We have a finding in an order that mom wanted a longer reunification.
No, he said,
period
it said
than
mom.
he did. We already have that finding.
Well, it was worked out between Merle Lack and
I don't
myself,
care who it was
so it
worked out
wasn't mother.
between. I have a finding
Okay,
that mom
Well,
wanted.
the bottom line is that we have an order, and we really shouldn't go behind the order.
okay, then I'll rephrase my
But
question.
You can ask her the question, it's
Yeah.
the objection, why she thinks it was necessary, or
Why
why.
why did you think it was necessary?
For what?
Such a long reunification?
First of all, I didn't have a relationship with Marvin. Our relationship was very, very small. I didn't know him. So and he wasn't around for like the first year of Tarso's life, and I felt like it would have been damaging to Tarso to just send him with someone he didn't know, and I felt that we could do this in a longer term, and he didn't want to have to pay money for birth and back child support, so I said, why don't we do this for Tarso, so he can be more comfortable and eventually move on to overnights.
Okay, so he agreed to this terms, right?
Yes.
And in exchange of to waive
The
child
1 year
support
child
arrears.
support
and-
and-
Objection sustained.
You were explaining to the court the change in behavior of his son that began right after the unsupervised visits were being allowed in California. And you explained that he couldn't fall asleep, that he couldn't sleep with the light had to be on, you had to change
Counselor,
it.
what's the question?
And I'm gonna go to the question.
Can I get a date as to what we're referring?
Yeah, because
She said right after the judge ordered the unsupervised
Well,
visits.
give us a date, because I mean,
July 3rd.
I ordered it a lot of times, and a lot of times it wasn't followed, and then finally it happened.
It was followed, okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you the dates. But it was followed.
I just know that this case started in 2011, and we're in 2015, and we're still basically at day one.
Just 1 second, I'm gonna have to go get it.
And for everybody's information, I'm gonna look at all the hearing tapes. And if you want to, you can look at them too. So when after we're done here, I'm gonna review all the orders and all the actual tapes of the hearings. Because I'm pretty sure, and the reason I'm doing that, I'm pretty sure I warned everybody that, if we continue this way, we were gonna be here one of these days. And I try to advise everyone to not to keep continue this case for every little thing, because we're gonna be here this day, and this was gonna happen, and here we are. But I'm gonna review the tapes, you can review them, because I'm sure I've told everyone, and I think I even started at the very beginning, but I'll look at it and see how many times I've actually advised both sides that, I didn't want this to continue, and it did continue. So I'm gonna see how many times I've actually warned people, because I think that's important as part of the history of this case. So you're trying to figure out what date?
I'm gonna try to figure out the date that you ordered the visitation. I know she filed the motion, he filed the counter motion, and that's when you found that you thought that enough time had lapsed and he could go ahead and have, unsupervised visits in California. So I'm just finding that the minute ordered right now. Okay, here it is, every other week. Okay, it was in November 14th of 2012.
That's when the overnight
The
visits were ordered.
minutes say, further order the following beginning December the 1st, 2012, and the other the week thereafter. That visitation will be Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And, you did Donna's house at that time, excuse me,
Yeah.
and I apologize for that. Just 1 second.
I think I waited a long time before we had any overnights, even in Vegas, and then definitely a long time before any overnights in California. We'll take just 2-minute recess when you find it, because I think it's
Yeah.
important to figure out.
Yeah, I think it is too.
So when you find it, call me right back.
Looking for Soraya.
I'm on the date that unsupervised visits were granted in California.
That happened after the hearing where she was in proper person.
Okay, here, I'm in December the 6th, 2012. A confidential report was returned from Donna's house. Minor Shaw, our bonding attorney, Locke stated that has had a decreased income, cannot afford to come here. Mom sharing the cause, the client, counsel stated the visitation is financial prohibited because visiting once per month at Donna's house.